RFK Jr. has finally responded to his thoughts on this lawsuit. Now, I know everyone has been like, this has been like the number one concern lately. If you're following Kennedy, you have been concerned about what has been happening in New York. So last week, Kennedy has been fighting for his life in the courts in Albany. And it is because they are trying to say that he is not a state resident, therefore invalidating the over 100,000 signatures that have already been submitted to the Board of Electors. And today, Mr. Kennedy has given this announcement. It's about a 7-minute video, really going into the details of this ruling and why he is really not worried. And I'm just going to play about a minute of that video, but I also want us to look into what Jordan, is my lawyer, is saying, because she has some really interesting thoughts here. And I also want us to look into what the state of New York 2023 election law actually says, because I think this is really, really profound. So let's get into it. I don't want this to be a long video, so I'm done yapping. Let's get it.
I was advised by my attorney, who was Paul Ross. He was arguably the best ballot access attorney in the country. And I
Also, I am starting this video in the middle. I will have this linked for you if you want to watch it in the description. But I really just wanted to play this portion of it because I think it gives you just all the context you really need. But let's get back.
needed to put my New York address down, that it's the only address that a lawsuit, my own, that I would survive a lawsuit. He said, you're going to get sued by the DNC no matter what state. If you put Massachusetts, you'll be sued. If you put California, you're going to be sued, and you're going to be sued in the New York State Court. So,
See, I love this going in. Like, he knew he would be facing adversity, but he knew that this is his best possible chance. And I also wanted to play that portion just because if a lot of you guys are probably wondering, like, oh my gosh, well, like I read this article by the AP and it's pretty clear, like this makes a very bad case for RFK Jr. Like, why would he do this? Why would he put down an address that wasn't his? Why does he not live in New York? Like, you can ask all these questions if you read all this, but the fact is he really didn't have an option. Okay. And at the end of the day, he was gonna get sued either way. Because you know what? When you're going against a behemoth, they're gonna try everything they can to squander you, to squat you. And you wanna know why? Because they're scared of you. Okay. Let's keep watching just a little bit longer. Okay. But this is good. All right. Because you know what? If Kennedy wasn't actually making an impact, okay, if he wasn't doing anything meaningful, if they didn't think that he had a chance to actually make some sort of meaningful impact in this election, you know what they would do? Nothing. They wouldn't do anything. They'd be quiet. They wouldn't do anything at all. But you know what this lawsuit tells us? This lawsuit tells us that they're scared. Okay? All right? And you know what? That's a good thing. Let's keep watching.
probably in front of the same judge. So I acted on the advice of counsel. And when you do that, you cannot be convicted of fraud if you acted in good faith at the advice of counsel, which I did. And here's why he told me that. In most of the states require the candidate, which would be me, to use the same address on their ballot petitions. So you have to use a consistent address around all 50 states. And there are many states, including, for example, New Hampshire, that require that the domicile has to be the place where the candidate votes. Well, I've only ever voted in New York. So the only domicile I could put, and I had to swear in California, in New Hampshire, I had to take an oath in front of a notary that my voting address was my New York address. And so I had to use that address in those states, which means I had to use it in every state.
I also just love how unworried he is. Okay, like I just love how in peace he is with all of this. And by the way, can we just shout out to this video. This is incredible video, all right? And the turnaround time is fascinating. Also, he is speaking in this video for like 7 minutes straight. I've only seen like one or two cuts throughout this entire video. I am so wildly impressed here. I love it so much.
And as you guys can imagine, this lawsuit is a frivolous lawsuit. It's a lawsuit that was brought by the DNC.
Also, quick interjection. I love the fact that he, because I actually took a law course, and they spent some time talking about what a frivolous lawsuit is, and a frivolous lawsuit is just something that is so ridiculous, right? Like, I remember my professor showing me this image. It's like this person saying, "Achoo, this giraffe store is giving me pneumonia." It's like, "No, it's not. You're just trying to find a problem." Okay? You're like, "Look at this. Ow, your sneeze made me drop my book on my foot." Right? It's like, "N no, that doesn't happen." You know? Like, the only people who are complaining about this, these guys just have different agendas. Okay, these guys are trying to make a buck. They have their own set of priorities, and they are just not acting in good faith. That's the thing. You are just not acting in good faith. So I think that very perfectly sums up what this lawsuit is. It's a frivolous lawsuit, and I love it. Now I also want us to really quick watch a very small portion of what Jordan's my lawyer is saying, because she spends some time talking about Mr. Kennedy. Check this out. This is today.
Of consideration of whether Kennedy's use of that address was intended to or did in fact mislead or confuse signatories to that petition. Rather, the strict compliance standard simply requires the court to determine whether the address was in fact Kennedy's legitimate, quote, place of residence under the election law at the time the nominating petition was circulated and filed with the Board of Elections, end quote. Continuing a little ways down on the ruling, or in the ruling, she writes, quote, here petitioners demonstrated by clear and convincing evidence, which is the standard of proof, that the address listed on the nominating petition was not Kennedy's bona fide residence within the meaning of the election law. Despite Kennedy's claim that he resided in the spare bedroom of the home as a tenant beginning in spring 2023, the overwhelming credible evidence established that Kennedy's connection with the address existed only on paper and was maintained for the sole purpose of maintaining his voter registration and political standing in the state of New York. End quote. As a result of this ruling, Kennedy's nominating petition is invalidated, the signatures are invalidated, and the deadline to file has already passed, so he can't refile. Essentially,
This is also wildly important, because if Kennedy doesn't win this appeal, then this will set precedent for invalidating every other state that he has already gone on. So this is a big deal, but I'm gonna tell you why we're not worried in a second, and why also Kennedy isn't worried. Okay.
essentially, if this ruling stands, he won't be on New York's ballot come November. Now, if you want to read that full ruling for yourself, you're more than welcome to. It's not that long, and I do, of course, have it linked for you in the sources section of this episode, which you can always find in the podcast description. Now, here's the thing. The Supreme Court has issued somewhat conflicting rulings on whether states can disqualify or bar presidential candidates. Most recently, as we know, in April, the justices unanimously held that Colorado could not disqualify Trump from its state ballot. That dealt specifically with Section 3 of the Constitution. The justices wrote, quote, we conclude that states may disqualify persons holding or attempting to hold state office, but states have no power under the Constitution to enforce Section 3 with respect to federal offices, especially the presidency, end quote. As I said, it's a little bit different of a situation because Section 3 of the Constitution, also known as the disqualification clause, is not at issue in Kennedy's case like it was in Trump's. Kennedy isn't being disqualified per a constitutional provision as much as the state of New York is saying that his nominating petition didn't meet the requirements under state election law and is therefore void.
What a great breakdown. Now, real quick, before we leave, I wanted us to look into the state of New York election law, because this is really what's kind of at the core of this issue. And this should make you just feel pretty good and absolutely not worried at all. Check this out. This reads, the term residence shall be deemed to mean that place where a person maintains a fixed, permanent, and principal home, and to which he, wherever temporarily located, always intends to return. Okay? Always intends to return. And that is exactly what is happening with Kennedy. He has always intended to return to New York, and that is why I believe this is a frivolous lawsuit. Anyways, let me know what you think about all this in the comment section. Agree with me, disagree with me. How do you feel about him? Do you also see this as, David taking on Goliath, and Goliath is just trying to take a bunch of swings, but David's not letting him? Let me know. All right, I love to see it. Hey everyone, thank you so much for watching and listening. I appreciate your time so much, and I really hope you enjoyed this episode. If you'd like to support what we're building here, please like and subscribe. It means a lot and it really helps us out. And if you want to see even more content from me, make sure to follow me on Instagram. I'm going to be sharing a lot more on there. Thank you so much. Have a great day, and I'll see you next time.